I've been skateboarding since I was about 9, probably longer than I've been an illustrator. And I guess for me, skateboarding is kind of like a good release from making images. I feel like a lot of times I'm kind of stuck in my own head or finishing projects. Skateboarding has similar principles to drawing where it's very frustrating and you have to be willing to keep persisting and keep trying and keep redoing things. It's very similar to an art form because it's really about creativity and your personal style. Growing up in the Midwest, there wasn't much to do there, so I feel like I was always drawing, but I didn't really have a developed focus until I came to Brooklyn and attended art school. Coming to art school and discovering the field of illustration, that piqued my interest, and that's when I kind of shifted my focus and really pursued illustration as a career and really was the most focused on art making. My name is Meyer, and I'm an illustrator. So I basically learned how to draw, I feel like on my own. I would like sit on the subway in Chicago and take it down into the city, and I would sit and draw people. And I think that I really discovered my skill set when I figured out that I was good drawing from life and then also drawing from photographs. My work in high school was mainly pencil, and I did a lot of portraits. And I think going to art school inputted different subject matter, and just discovering my style and working with ink sort of freed things up a little bit and allowed me to tell more stories with my work, not just kind of like one still image, but to have a message and a narrative. The most exciting thing for me is, as an illustrator, is really coming up with an interesting idea. And I really like pushing surrealism and stuff like that. I think after a long time of drawing, you just kind of get bored of the physical process. The initial stages of my work are always done in black and white. I find that if I'm using color, it's normally when I'm working for clients, or it's just kind of like an additive process to black and white. So I think that sometimes adding color to something kind of takes away, I guess, the draftsmanship and mark making that I do originally. So I've always found black and white to be a pure form of drawing. Everything usually starts on paper. I'll kind of thumbnail things out and, build my ideas that way. And I feel like it's a mix of kind of sketching things out from my head and then gathering reference for an idea. Photography plays a big part in my work in terms of basically like structuring my ideas out and making things look believable. After that collage process, I'll start building the final sketch, and then when I'm working with clients, that has to be approved. I do whatever changes I need, and then I print out that drawing, and then I'll ink over top of it using a light box. After the ink drawing is done, I'll either, finish the whole thing traditionally in color, or I'll scan it in and work on the computer. I feel like more of an artist when I'm using traditional materials, and I think I do some stuff on the computer depending on if something is like a short turnaround, but for me, I think working by hand is just much easier. I think that's how I learned how to draw, and I think that the computer kind of separates that from actually feeling like an artist and using traditional materials. For my work specifically, I really like to have a tactile quality to it. And for me, the only way to do that is just by making separations that are done by hand. There's, tools that people are using that kind of look the same. So I find that when I work traditionally on paper using charcoal or ink, that allows me to have more of a unique, original style. The biggest project that I've done is probably the Quentin Tarantino one. It was the summer of 2015. He contacted me to do basically a comic preview of one of his movies, and we worked together on it for about 3 to 4 months, and that was used as post-production for the film. At the time, I was doing a lot of illustration that looked kind of like 50s style, so I think he saw something in my work and then pitched this giant project with me, and he had these stick figures, and then from there I would, build reference and likeness and things like that. And so we would work from that and then basically sketch everything out in pencil, and that was like the most time-consuming process. It was maybe like 2 months of just planning the whole thing out. And then once everything was approved and all the revisions were made, then I started working ink on paper. The best part for me was really just developing a relationship with him. For me to get that project boosted my confidence and also the way that people saw my work. I basically was sharing a studio space in Bushwick with a couple of people, and I made some of my greatest friends through there. Specifically my friend Madi, she has 2 dogs. One of them is like a little Boston Terrier, and the other one is just a mix that we don't even know. I feel like meeting her became my extended family in New York, and the dogs are a big part of that. If I go anywhere else, I feel like saying my job, people just don't understand what it is. Whereas New York has plenty of illustrators and people pursuing art, and I think it's just a very exciting place to be an artist. I feel like there's always stuff going on. There's always an opportunity to meet interesting people. I've made some of my biggest connections here, but I don't plan on staying here for forever. Generally, when the decision-making came to like what I was gonna do with my career, I feel like I didn't really focus well in school, and I didn't really completely discover what I wanted to do. So I didn't have many options as far as that goes. I feel like I fell into illustration in a way because that's the only thing that I knew how to do. I'm always like working on a cover and things like that, and I think that was a more recent development. So I guess the constant life of an illustrator is like a rotating, editorial piece or a gallery piece, and I feel like I'm at a point where I feel like I'm consistently getting exciting projects, so we'll see what happens. You never know. Within the past couple of months, my work has shifted more towards political work, and I think that started with a job for the New York Times, which was a portrait of Trump. And I think generally magazines are shifting over to covering stories like that. And I like that because I think that, being part of something that's going on and being part of that story and being able to, make covers and actually have a message and something to say, I think that in the beginning of my career, I was really focused on just making these beautiful images, and I think now I'm more interested in conveying a message. It's a difficult time, and I feel like it's very important for artists to have something to say and comment on it. I did this one image that was about immigration and how immigrants trying to come into America. I would love to continue doing the political work. I think having a mix of both, political work and more narrative stuff is keeping me excited about doing what I'm doing. Anyone can physically put marks on a paper, but I think it's also important to figure out really what you want to say with your work. Taking dark stories or dark images or things that are going wrong in the world and pinning the essence of that message and putting it into an image, I think is very important. It's just all about capturing a moment from that story and making that beautiful.